afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Legally with Teachers. Today we have with us an expert panel. We have with us a judge, a member of the ICC, a school principal, and a student activist. Prevention against sexual harassment is something we've talked about on various days, on various talks. A lot of webinars have been done on this. Today we are here, along with DLSA's endeavor, to talk about how do we sensitize the schools, the students, the administration against POSH. Divya, we'll start with you. You've been a member of the ICC. You have formulated policies. Can you introduce the topic to us? Can you define what is sexual harassment? Can you define what is workplace?
Thank you so much, Gaurav. So I have been on the ICC for a period of 5 years now for a prominent university. One of the things that I would pick up from the policy and very simply define sexual harassment to be, it includes any one or more unwelcome remarks, which would either be direct, indirect, physical contacts or advances, a demand or a request for a sexual favor, making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, or any other unwelcome verbal, physical, non-verbal conduct. One thing that I would like to add here is that depending on the context, as defined by law, the virtual space is also covered within the definition of a workplace. So with regard to the law, a workplace is defined as a place of employment physically and extends to any place where members, students, teachers, staff members are included or are extending their work commitments to. For example, as it has been seen in most cases, if you're traveling to work from place A to B, that journey made to travel in a bus or a cab is a part of your workplace. It is made to reach a workplace. So that's how so that's a very simple way of looking at it.
Thank you. Srijani, we were discussing on a few talks earlier. It's very common for male teachers to judge prejudicially, I would say, a lot of female students. What is your take on that? How do you think that we should sensitize the male teachers in schools, and what kind of incidents can you throw light on that actually perpetrate during the school time?
So I think in schools, I didn't have a lot of male teachers because most of them were female ones. But otherwise, there have been a few male teachers. So I remember this incident. I was very young then, but it happened with my seniors. So this male teacher, so there was a bunch of kids sitting, and he would be like, okay, so the more attractive girls sit here. The less attractive ones sit here, and he made girls feel very uncomfortable that way. And even like he went further ahead and did certain other things also, making remarks on how chubby they are or their body shape and all of that. So he was definitely thrown out of school. But the thing is that even for that 2 weeks, the way he made girls feel uncomfortable, they were not willing to be in the vicinity of other male teachers also after that. So yeah, that's one example I can give.
Thank you. Sridhar, you've been a school principal for a long time. You've been on the administrative side. You've been a teacher. Can you share your experience as to what difficulties do you face in running the school, or what kind of incidents have been reported to you, or how difficult it is at times to tackle with the problems that are reported to you in this regard?
Good afternoon, everyone. In my experience as an educationist, as an administrator, I have seen a number of incidents and a number of times when there has been miscommunication, bad communication, and we have taken actions at appropriate level. And in schools, when you have people coming from so many backgrounds, so many kind of mindsets, every school will face some sort of problem. And I think the it is critical for schools to have systems in place to identify these problems as early as possible and make sure that they are addressed with all seriousness, and redressal is there for the students or teachers. Primarily, if you talk about the students, about the teachers, like you just now spoke about male teachers, uh, male teachers inappropriate behavior towards female students. So we, at school, we always, whenever there's a new male teacher who comes to the school, we do lot of orientation and lot of training for the teacher, where we say where we inculcate or we ingrain in him that absolutely no touch policy, no remark on any physical attribute, no gender-based remarks should ever be passed to any student. And we encourage our students to speak out. If anybody is uncomfortable, anybody feels that he or she has, there is a sixth sense in every woman. In fact, why only women? Women. We also have to talk about boys. Sometimes boys might also feel uncomfortable. So we are not only training our teachers to what is appropriate behavior, what is inappropriate behavior, but also the students, that in case they feel uncomfortable, there are teachers, there are counselors, there is a vice principal. They can walk up to anyone and discuss their problem, or give explain their discomfort, and immediate action is taken.
Thank you, ma'am. Chanda sir, we're coming to you now. First of all, thank you so much for taking this initiative to start a series where we can, support the teachers, because I firmly believe that if we cannot support the teachers, if we cannot support the younger generation, then we have failed as a society. So can you please dispel the notions around the law? First, what exactly stands for, and how do you think can we sensitize the various stakeholders involved in the entire process?
Thank you, Gaurav. I thank all the panelists also, and my colleagues Ajit and Sumit, who are not today on the panel, but we all have been there in the workforce while working for this talk series. So as far as this sensitizing all the stakeholders, Gaurav, I would like to share that we at Delhi State Legal Services Authority, before this pandemic times, have been physically going to various schools, be it the government school, be it the private schools. So there, wherever we were going, we were talking to the children, we were talking to the teachers, and we had age-appropriate programs also. So if there are students those who are below 6th, 7th, or 8th standard, so we were talking to them in a different genre. The students from 9 to 12, they were spoken with in a different genre. And then we spoke to the teachers separately also, and as part of the program, and when we were speaking to the children also. So the notions there, the first thing that I would like to request everybody, and which is something we always go and speak to anyone, especially the females, we always say this one slogan we would like to share with everyone, that is chuppi todo. So if there is anything happening, so we must come out and talk about it and report it. One should not feel shame, or one should not feel any kind of constraint that if I speak about it, what will people think about me? So that's one thing which is required to go. So whenever we're talking about prevention, prohibition, and redressal of sexual harassment at workplace, it has a very deep meaning. It is not what it seems on the surface. It is gender justice actually in action. So whenever there is an independence, so the independence is social, cultural, and the economic also. Tangentially we'll see that this is all about the economic independence, but it is about the social and cultural independence also. Then let's say that what somebody is going to wear in the school or any other premises. And as Divya has told that the concept of the office also is very important that we speak about. It is not it is not limited to the four walls of a building. It is every place where your work takes you. So these are few things that that we need to understand. And then what is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is very subjective. It is one thing. It could be a kind of unwelcome thing for me, and it could be okay with the other person. So it is not something which will be defined by majority. If it is unwelcome for one, it is unwelcome for her. We cannot say that others do not have any kind of objection, or they do not have any kind of reservation, so will not decide by the majority. It is the person who is the most important. So these are the certain issues upon which we generally try to speak with all the stakeholders.
Thank you so much, sir. Very well said. So we've heard all the panelists. Divya, I have a question for you. Since you've been, as you mentioned, a member of the ICC, what will happen in case a school one doesn't have an ICC, and what also happens if the offender is the part of the management?
I'll take the question about the mandate of having an internal complaints committee first. If an employer per se fails to constitute an ICC or does not comply with the requirements prescribed under the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Workplace Act, there is a monetary penalty of up to 50,000 that can be imposed. When there is a repetition of this particular offense, the amount or the penalty could be doubled. And there could also be a deregistration of an entity or a revocation of any statutory business licenses that happens. So this is something that has to be kept in mind. I think it's not emphasized enough that the first step of establishing a dialogue is having a body. When you have a body, as a compliance, you will have to educate the body. So that's how you start a cycle of conversation. You constitute a body, you have meetings for them. There is a discussion about the existence of a body. So that's where it all really starts. Now, talking about the member, whether there is somebody who's an offender who's probably on the ICC, or I would even take it to the senior management or of an institution. A lot of times, instances have come to me where sexual harassment at a workplace is really a product of hierarchy. In a school, as we all come from a certain kind of an education, the teacher is always considered a superior. So is a teacher or a principal, everyone at a workplace. So asking for sexual favors or sexual advances in return of certain privileges at a workplace is really at the core of issues within a society like India. So if you have somebody from a management, I think it is really the duty of senior faculty. We have this in our organization. When I start trainings for anybody in my organization, the first notification I send out is that if you have a problem with somebody on the ICC, the first person you go to is a registrar or a vice chancellor, and here is a separate email or a telephone communication only to report these cases of harassment. So once you create the senior most hierarchy and show that they're available to take up cases against even management, people will come up openly about any judgments passed or any grievances or even harassment from within an ICC. So it's important to show a position of authority that would even entertain complaints about an ICC to build trust. That's the core of it.
Gaurav, can I come in here?
Yes, please. I was just coming to you. Can you chip in on this, sir?
Yeah. So what Divya has told, in addition to this, I'll say I'd like to add one or two things. One, Divya has very rightly said that if statutory provisions are not complied with, there is a monetary fine, monetary punishment, and it is not only sufficient that you have an ICC in your organization. There are two more things which every organization is required to do. First, that they will have to put that information about the ICC at the conspicuous places in their organization. So if there is an ICC, so they will have to put boards at various places so that people could know that there is a committee in existence. Second thing, that it is the responsibility of the employer that he has to engage dialogue on this from time to time. If we have to talk about the technical language, then he will have to have an awareness of this on this subject, within a time frame, and it has to be on continuous basis. So these are the two things, and if these two things are also missing, then that monetary punishment can be imposed. And about that, somebody is in the ICC committee against whom the allegations are made. So this is the first principle of natural justice, that nobody can hear their own case. So that person is required to be replaced, and the ICC will required to be reconstituted. So one should not worry that the person is in position or the person, the person is in the ICC. So there are other safeguards also in the Act. For example, that for making complaint only, any person cannot be punished. And in addition to this, that if somebody believes that due to this complaint there could be detriment to her personally or to her employment, then she can seek a transfer also, and she can seek leaves also, which is up to 3 months over and above the leaves otherwise she is entitled to. So there is a total mechanism and structure which is there to protect the person who is making the complaint, and the confidentiality is there. That confidentiality clause is also not spoken about much. So the confidentiality, nobody can get to know. Even the reports which has to be sent to the higher authority, they can only mention that how many number of cases were reported and what was the result of that. No other information can be sent to them also. So that's the level of confidentiality which this Act is contemplating.
You're absolutely right, but I have one question there. We've talked about that the offender cannot be a part of the ICC. Now, my question is, what do we do? Let's take an example of the school. What if a trustee has sexually harassed a school teacher? He's a trustee of the school. He owns the management to a large extent. What happens in that scenario? Does the Act provide for any protection when it comes to such a scenario?
First of all, we'll have to understand what is the constitution, what is the composition of the ICC. The ICC is always headed by a female, and that is the senior most employee from the organization. And if in that organization no senior female employees available, they will have to have somebody from the outside also. And then there has to be a person to ensure independence. There has to be a representation from outside, which is which it has to be given to any NGO. So in the example which you are quoting, that if there is somebody who is a trustee, so the law says that until unless that person against whom the case is going on, he cannot be part of the committee, he cannot be part of the hearings as adjudicator. He can be part of the person representing himself or giving his version, but he cannot be part of the adjudicator. The committee will have to be reconstituted. It cannot be so. It is basically a part of natural justice that nobody can hear anything against NGOs.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Sridharji, I have a question for you. In the given times that we are in, education has moved online. What kind of safeguards have you installed so that, we have heard incidents where students have been passing lewd remarks during online classes. What kind of safeguards have you put in place for the teachers to protect the teachers during the present times?
Yeah, you're right. All of a sudden, schools had to uh, get on with online classes. There was no preparation. There was no time to upgrade ourselves, and teachers had to teach themselves overnight. And students has always been they have been ahead of us in technology. So there was a time for some time teachers were at receiving end, and we did find all schools face problems where the students will trouble the teachers, and sometimes there will be vulgar remarks and uh, similar kind of incidents. So we have there are checks and balances, there are safeguards. The platforms that we are using, we have made them more safer. The basic problem is anonymity. When we cannot find out who is misbehaving, it becomes difficult for us to take action. So we are trying to make a system secure so that no unwanted person can can enter the classes, because initially what was happening was that students were passing on the links to their cousins also, and somebody will enter the class and start troubling the class, disturbing the class. So most of the schools have now safeguards in place, uh, but still at times when children chat among themselves, when an online class is going on, there are some inappropriate remarks, and those remarks are dealt with strongly. You have to understand that these are students, they are at vulnerable age, we cannot criminalize them. So what happens is that there is a strong counseling session for the parents, students, and teachers. We explain to them what that it constitutes legal offense, because most of the time students take it as a joke. They think they are just troubling the teacher. Most of us have loved troubling teachers. We have the students who would speak out, speak back, were the heroes in the classes. So similar thing continues in the online classes also. But then we have to explain the seriousness and enormity of the situation to the students. We have been able to handle, most of the schools are handling these cases, and in case of where a line has been crossed, there have been suspensions in few schools for the students for some time to bring them back online.
Thank you. Srijani, I would love to have your take on how the online classes have been moving on. Have you faced any incidents? Have you seen, like, what is your experience as a student activist on this topic?
So I passed out, and but there was this phase where we were like, we might have online classes because boards were like suspended midway. Our classes were relatively safer, but we were getting to know from our teachers, from our other juniors, that there were these people. So internet gives you this relative anonymity, which is being exploited by these kids. So of course the same thing was happening, passing really disgusting remarks about teachers and even about fellow female students, sometimes playing questionable music and background noise. So I would like to add something to what Sunita ma'am said. Ma'am, while I agree, but what I have myself noticed is that there's a very enabling environment in school for boys who do this kind of stuff. At least in my, like, it's not that they were not willing to take action, but a lot of people had to speak up that, this is wrong. We want you to take action. Why is this happening? And all of that. If whether against, mostly this was against another peer that, this boy did this, but most teachers try to, shut it down and be like, no, it's fine. They're at a tender age. And I do not believe that a boy in 10th is at a tender age when he's very consciously doing certain things. And I think parents are also at fault, because I've myself witnessed in PTMs that whenever a teacher even tries to tell them that your son did this or is passing very lewd remarks, they're like, बच्चे हैं, लड़के तो ऐसे ही होते हैं इस एज में, and all of that. So I think it creates sort of an enabling environment. Like, I agree, most boys take it as a joke, but when you let them get away with it, it's not a joke anymore.
Thank you. That's actually very enlightening. Divya, can you add on to the virtual space?
Yes, Gaurav, I'd like to come in there because I'm sort of in the middle of where Srijani and Sunita ma'am are. I am a young university professor. I'm at an age where most of my students are not much younger than me. I think the entire debate around this argument of a juvenile has been this. With technology, with nature of harassment and the exposure to sources of where they learn inappropriate or appropriate behavior is far more in terms of students than what the teachers are. They've been thrown into this online scenario suddenly. For example, most of the faculty or the teachers are not going to be exposed to Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, or other social media platforms to the in the same way as students are. So one of the things, and there have been many instances, I have instances of faculty and teachers reporting to me about their pictures being picked up from social media and morphed, because most teachers are not even aware that you can just save pictures of Facebook or WhatsApp. And they add students in a friendly manner because we're all on a virtual platform. Students can pass remarks or put them in songs which are considered lewd remarks, which teachers may not even be aware of. Something that has worked, again, sexual harassment as a law also comes, prevention is a big part of it. Something that has worked for me in the past in terms of doing trainings and sensitizations in the recent past, at the start of a session or at the start of a class, having somebody from a senior authority and the teacher come in on that web chat and really talk to those students that, look, there is a space where you draw the line. We WhatsApp chats, there are grid lines of appropriate behavior that need to be drawn. So let's say if a principal or a vice principal comes at the start of a class, maybe the first day of the session, and says, this is protocol. I know anonymity, a lot of things are issues, but just to enforce that MMSs, talking to your teachers and sending them emails from personal messages, social media, is really a punishable offense. Not most youngsters are at an age that they can be considered tender. I understand that female teachers and male teachers are considered caregivers in the first sense. I do not agree with that. Students are way smarter, way more educated about the processes. In a lot of faculty and teachers actually have troubles understanding the nature of harassment that students understand, which nobody else does. They're in relationships and engaging with way more sexual content than any of the teachers did at that age. They have more access online. So I think we need to address these and aid the teachers. You're not helping your teachers by not creating protocols because they're new to this whole system.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree with that. Because this is something that's been talked about a lot of times, that the students are much smarter now. It's the digital age, and we really need to support the teachers. Chandra sir, can you come in here and tell us what, as DLSA, what kind of support systems do we have for schools and teachers?
Yeah, before that, I want to share my opinion on this topic about the virtual space. See, but we there is a kind of understanding in us that the virtual space is, we have used it mostly for the entertainment, or basically for the social interaction. So perforce we are using it now for the official and the professional purposes also. So for schools in particular, I believe that we all have an idea that when we get into classroom or when we enter into the school premises, we have a different kind of mindset, and that is ingrained in us. So there, probably when this online classes have started, so there was a kind of communication gap, in the sense that the students and especially the parents of the students, they were not there was not much communication between schools and the parents, whereby they were trained, or they were told that you have to tell your wards that how they have to supposed to behave in the virtual classroom also. So that's one thing. There are other things also, that these students are certainly way smarter than the teachers are, because it is they use more technology than the teachers do. So as far as the support by DLSA to the teachers concerned is, one, first we try to sensitize everybody, and the kind of talk series in association with Gaurav we have started today. So that's the first thing we try to do, that we try to reach out to everybody, tell them about us, tell them about what the law is, and also tell them that they need not to worry and they need to come out. And secondly, which generally is a worry for everybody, that if they come out, what will happen to them. So we are here to tell you that we are with you at every step. And if there is anything, if somebody comes up and makes a complaint and somebody takes any unwanted action against them, so there will be a legal action against them, and for which we'll support them fully. In legal aid, all the females, they are entitled for free legal aid. So if there is anything they want to make a case against anyone, so that will be given to them. And it is also that in the ICC committees also, they can represent their case, they can consult us, although there is no provision as such that where the advocates can go and represent their clients in the ICC committee. It's an it's an in-camera proceeding where the person have to represent themselves. So that's another thing. But there is no stopping them that they could consult us, they could seek the guidance. So there is all support for them. That is why we have started this campaign, starting this series as Legally with Teachers. So we are there with you. If there is anything we can support you legally, so we'll support you.
Gaurav, I'm so sorry, but I have an opinion to share, and I'm so sorry, with all due respect. We always go about the law, and we always talk about everything. Something that I've heard in complaints and from everyone over the years We always, when we talk about it, because the law was written like that, and that's one of the, for me, a drawback of the law, we always talk about women. I understand women I'm a lawyer who advocates women's rights. I understand that we recognize them as a minority and disadvantaged in some way. But just because all our conversations happen like there are policies for women, we want gender empowerment. So when I actually deal with cases, I have a huge section of male students and teachers who come to me and say, very simply put, हम क्या बोलेंगे, सब लोग तो एंड में तो लॉ लड़कियों को ही सपोर्ट करता, हमारी बात क्या कौन मानेगा? This becomes a huge problem when we go later. So if we just change everything from women and make that dialogue an individual who reports sexual harassment. A lot of organizations and schools have gender neutral policies of their own. So I think maybe we need to start talking about individuals and not women and men. They're all people. More and more students identify themselves of a different sexual orientation at a younger age, even across sections in government schools, public schools, private schools, international schools. I think we need to change the way we approach things.
Yes, I'll also come in here. Gaurav. You are right. That whenever we're talking about law, it talks about females, and that how they can be protected. I don't believe that they are in minority or any way disadvantaged. So there are certain things that we have to catch up as a society, but not minority or disadvantaged. But then when we talk about law, there are some expressed things, there are some implied things. When we say that these are the rights or the protection which are available to the females, so we are indirectly talking about the males also, that these are their duties. And secondly, when I started, I said that the POSH has given us a very wonderful definition of sexual harassment, that it is unwelcome, will not go by the majority, as you're saying, that will not go by the one category, women or otherwise. So the POSH is all about individuality, that if it is unwelcome by one, it will be considered to be in that sense only. Majority will not be considered. Let's say that if there is something we say it is not liked by you, then what is the opinion of other two female members, that will not be of much consequence in terms of this act. So that's one thing. And secondly, then there are when we are talking about groups, sections of society, there are few things which will be true to all individuals. So we have to have a kind of amalgamation of individual identities and the group identities, because there are few things which are so generic that every individual will say, yes, this is right or this is wrong. So this is a combination of all these things. And whenever we are talking about one group, we are indirectly talking about the other, though expressly it might not be there.
No, I completely agree with you, Chanderjit, on the law, and you're the person who knows the best about law. I am only talking out of experience of just our general sensitization and experience, because I definitely don't believe women are a minority. I'm a 27-year-old lawyer, and I'm on a forum, so I would never say that. But yes, I'm talking about mindset. When we have conversations, everybody, because the law emphasizes women so much, that becomes a common forum of discussion. Not everybody will go into as much understanding of the law as an experienced professional like you would. So it's important to change the way we talk about something, because that has an impressionable. We're talking about a very impressionable audience, and who know nothing about the law. So if I tell a student from a government school or a public school that women, it gets internalized. But the minute I start saying all of you, that gets internalized. And I'm sure Srijani has something to say about that, because that's how students talk. When I hear students say, no, women, देखो पता है उसके साथ वो हो गया, that girl, उस लड़के ने कुछ किया होगा. That's what I hear in all my trainings. Nobody understands the law as intricately as you do, and I think it's our responsibility to educate them about that.
Yes. Yeah, of course, Divya. But this one thing, when you said that people come to you and say law to ultimately लड़कियों के favor ही करता है, you just ask them that can you count five examples where you believe that the guy was innocent or the person was innocent and it has favored the female. So this is how we have to go back. Also, you're very right. This is very impressionable. but then we have to, cut down the impressions with the facts also. So this is what I used to do, that if somebody comes and says that, women are misusing certain laws, or for that matter, anybody, they are misusing any law. So I'll just ask them, can you please give me 5 names where you have a, direct experience or knowledge of a thing where you believe that this has been misused. So people then, they don't have answers generally. And if somebody has answer, then we can tackle them also. So certainly it is impressionable, and we have to talk about all. You are right in that sense also, that we have to talk all, but that's right. Gaurav, your mic is mute.
Sorry, I just said that, Sunita, I would like to bring you in here. I would like you to, share your perspective as to what Divya has said and as to what Chandra sir has said. I would love to hear what you think as a school administrator about this.
Yeah, I think that we as school administrator, I should not wait for sexual harassment to happen. Prevention is the best cure, and we must make sure that we inculcate a sense of gender justice, gender equality in everything that we do, because all these problems stem from a typical mindset, a stereotypical image in children, in individuals' mind, that women are like this, men are like this. So, for a simple example, like if we make children, if like for dance, for whom do you consider to be a dance teacher? We deliberately took a Kathak dance teacher who's a male, and we encourage girls football. We encourage we encourage boys to take cooking as a hobby class. We try to defeat stereotypes. We try to defeat mindsets that are given to them by the society, by debate, discussions, and two things are very important here. One, a sense of responsibility towards other people's right should be inculcated, and second is the courage to speak out. If anything is wrong happening to you, if you feel uncomfortable, you should have a courage to speak out. It goes for both boys and girls. And I agree with Divya completely, because these days boys are as vulnerable for sexual exploitation as girls, and girls still have that innate sense where they can sense inappropriate behavior, but boys at times take time to understand, to acknowledge it, to understand that what is happening with them. So I completely agree with her that we must have gender neutral act. It should be in the act itself, so that people like Chanderjit sir do not have to keep explaining that the notion of it applies to both men and women.
Thank you. Srijani, to what Divya said, do you also believe that if we keep on speaking about one gender, then the conditioning, because we're talking about conditioning here, conditioning of the human mind, do you think that that's how we get conditioned to think that if something must have happened, it must have happened? And, we believe in stories. So when we just keep on saying it, we just forget as to what may or may not have happened, and we just believe that to be the truth. Can you just, share your thoughts on that?
So I'll again take a midway thing between Sir and Divya ma'am, because what Sir said is very true. In our cultural context, this victim blaming thing is very, very strong, whether it be for teachers. One of the main reasons I feel teachers don't speak up is because the parents, the senior teachers will be like, you must be wearing something, or you're young, and everything imaginable. So I have always seen this when we are talking about sexual assault, rape, and all of that. A lot of people, without even knowing anything, they're like, so one, ladko ke saath bhi hota hai, men face it too. I agree, men face it too. But why do you only bring it up when we are talking about the injustice meted out to women? Why is it only being brought up then, is my question. And secondly, again, the point that ask them to give examples where women were just believed the moment they said that, I've been harassed or I've been sexually assaulted. We never believe the victim. That was what Me Too was about. Believe the victim. We never do it. The onus should fall on the perpetrator, on the accused, to prove that they're innocent. But that never happens in our social context. Nonetheless, I strongly believe in what Divya ma'am said, that all, even otherwise, I always advocate for conversations where we use the term individuals, gender neutral, to see that victims can be anyone and perpetrators can be anybody. So when you're talking to children, there's this, especially when you're an older person and you're speaking to them, and children below 10 tend to listen to you and really internalize what you're saying. So speaking to them in terms of, that anyone can be a victim, anyone can speak up, I think it's very important.
Thank you. Divya, I have a question for you. You've been a member of the ICC, and this I just wanted to ask from the starting. Are you happy the way the POSH Act is structured? Are you happy? Do you think it is fully functional, or could you point out a few loopholes? If you want to point out like 5 points, what do you think are the loopholes in the Act?
I am not entirely satisfied with the Act. One of my biggest problems with the Act, I just pointed out, is its bias towards a particular gender. And I say so because, again, it's the reason everything is about reporting. The reason we don't hear from men as much, or even women for that matter, is because we haven't given them enough scope to speak up about it. I feel that the Act in such measure is inadequate because it doesn't talk about, let's say, for example, much clarity about false complaints. I would not go into specific sections because there is so much debate that can happen in every part of the Act. But I feel the Act could have been far more comprehensive. The Act could have expanded upon its definition of workplace and who it considers employers. For example, students, higher education institutions, schools are not really covered explicitly. We have to go, as a higher education institution ICC member, I refer to the UGC Saksham guidelines way more than I refer to the Act, because the Act is so limited in its scope that I feel that a lot of the new contemporary issues, for example, virtual harassment, all of these are not covered. And nor is the Act given enough leeway for us to interpret and go to other sections. I'm sure Chanderjit has a lot to say about that. But when I actually use it for the enforcement, when I am dealing with problems at the ICC every day, members, it does define how many members I have to have, who can be a presiding officer. But there's always something lacking. There's always something lacking with an NGO represent. How do I define what member has adequate experience or knowledge about women's issues? That is such a broad end term that when I'm finding an external member for my committee, I am always in a loop because it's so widely debated. I want one comprehensive set of laws that gives me all the information rather than I having to look up other places. I feel the intention with which the law was made, very simply put, and its implications in its usage are really far from each other. It was meant for employers, and it needs to be used at workplaces, at schools, higher institutions, all of these places. So the intention and the implication are still a little far away from each other without getting to specifics of the Act and creating too much buzz around that.
We'll save the nitty-gritties for next talk. But Chandra, so could you pitch in, and could you just also talk about briefly about how do we sensitize, as I asked in the beginning, what do you think, what is your take on sensitization of the staff, of the employers, and also of the students in the school to the entire Act?
There was one thing I just want to point out. I could see the pointers which are coming on the screen, and says that the Act does not say anything about the false complaints. There's a complete procedure about the false complaints, and if there is somebody who makes a false complaint, so there can be a punishment against her also. So that's the only thing I want to say at this time. And rest, as you're saying, that what we can do about the sensitization, we'll have to find different measures and mechanisms to speak with different stakeholders. For example, when we're talking, we are speaking with the teachers, the more emphasis would be that they should come out and say whatever they feel, and they should not keep it to them. That's the first thing. That's the point which I would like to speak with the teachers, because otherwise they are they are mature, and they can understand what the law is if we can tell them quickly. And then when we're talking to the students, there will be two things which we'll have to convey to them. One, that that it is not that if they are juvenile they can get away with each and everything. So they need to understand that being juvenile only means that they will be treated differently. But if they breach law, there will be punishment and consequences for that also. And secondly, that how do we reach them? We'll have to engage students. We'll have to engage, and then we can develop some kind of questionnaire, some kind of flyer, some kind of competitions or street plays or anything. So with each stakeholder, we'll have to make a strategy. We'll have to make a study and to look out at what is it that we want to convey to them. No doubt there will be a base content that will tell them what is offense, what is sexual harassment, and everything. But then what is their role and how they can go about it, so that we can better implement this law. And what I could understand is that when Srijani was also talking about the social aspects. So dealing any situation with at the social dimension is a very complex thing. And when we reach at a stage that just by going around those social complexities, we are not able to address any issue. So the law comes into picture, and that law by itself, brings a medium of the change also. So when we are talking so much about this gender justice, when we're talking so much about dignity of work and no sexual harassment at workplace, this will become our social culture also. Then probably, a few years down the line, we might not even need this statute as such. I'm not saying that we'll do away with this, but I'm saying that we'll, grow in a society, so that we might not need any specific laws on it anymore. So for each stakeholders, we'll have to define strategies. We'll have to reach out to each of them individually and then jointly also, so that we are able to convey that what is the spirit of law and that what is expected of them.
Thank you. Can you also talk just briefly in a minute about false complaints?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I would just like to clarify, Chanderjit. Yes, there is a provision in the law about false complaints. What I wanted to say to a very limited measure is when we're talking about deficiencies in a law, when we're actually interpreting it. When I'm on the ICC and I have complaints that come to me, when I look at a law which says that in case the ICC arrives to a conclusion that a complaint is false or malicious, when I am in a practical scenario, and this is where I would bring in Srijani's point in a practical aspect. Nobody believes the woman in the first instance, is what Srijani said. When I have been given such a broad term like malicious and false, when I have a committee of a quorum sitting there trying to understand what is the evidence, there's a lot of instances that are not direct evidence which says that this is a false complaint. I am making a malicious. In my experience of 142 complaints, I've had only one instance where I have a message that says, yes, I made this complaint because I wanted to make sure that my senior doesn't get a promotion. So when I, as a committee member, I'm seeing malicious and false complaints leading up to that conclusion. So for me, a law that has such broad definition becomes a little problematic when I am dealing with real cases. And this is the limited point for me as an act. Broad definitions, open-ended discussions leads to a lot of practical issues in a very hierarchical society where we're still evolving many instances and educating ourselves about different forms of harassment.
I'll just take half a minute, Gaurav, because on this aspect, I would say that in law we cannot put things in straight like a formula, because the point otherwise we were talking about the member of the NGO also. So that's a kind of leeway which is being given to the institution, or which is being given to the your location. For example, that if you are located in Delhi NCR, you will look for a different kind of experience, and you will find a different kind of experience also. If you are into some far-flung area of our country, you will have a different kind of experience. So if we put that somebody would have a X number of years of experience, or X number of complaints, or X number of this and this, so that becomes a more kind of a very rigid and a thing that will try to just find the people, and we might not find many people, and that also brings us that we might miss the creative and the enthusiastic people also. So I believe that the open-endedness is a kind of advantage to us that falls in Malaysia's, that that will be define a perspective formula that will take away that aspect of believing the victim. So if it is said that if victim could not believe three persons in her evidence, so it will be a false complaint. If it becomes so, then it will create more problems than it will solve it. So I believe that when we give the open-ended formula, and being the academia, more than me, that law is an organic thing, and it will evolve, and as it's a recent thing, 6-year-old only, since these ICC have started working. So there will be times and there will be situations that will be able to address all these concerns, and will find practical solutions. The precedents would be there. So there will be so many things. So I believe that the more open-ended thing, with touches of glimpses of what is the parameter, what are the variables, we might be able solving more things than we are complicating it.
Thank you, Chandra sir. I like what you said, that law is organic. I certainly do believe that law is always evolving. It will take its own time. We cannot always put it that the law is weak. We cannot say that the judiciary doesn't work or the system doesn't work. We as stakeholders, we need to put in the effort to get the change. And I like what Divya said, that we need to change the narrative. We cannot keep on saying that women are the victims. It's not really there. We cannot, because if we say that, then we kind of counter the statement. On one hand, we say that women are equal, and the other we say women are victims. So we have to choose which one do we want to go with. So the narrative definitely needs to change. I thank all the panelists today for joining us. We'll be back next Saturday with a very interesting topic: how subjective is sexual harassment? We need to talk about, so today we've talked about the basics of sexual harassment law, what the law provides, what the ICC provides, but as the definition also provides unwelcoming remarks. So how do you decide that what is unwelcoming for someone? So thank you for joining us today. I thank the Lawyers team for powering us for the talk today, as well as all the secretaries for DLSA. Thank you so much. We'll be back next Saturday at the same time. Legally with Teachers. You can share your thoughts at Legally with Teachers. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Gaurav, for inviting us.
Most welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.